Yes. I'd like to call the Cobra Board of Education meeting to order. It is 5 o'clock. Please let the minutes show that Mr. Gomez and Mr. Holguin are not here. Please stand for the pledge. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico. This is a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items of August 9th.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
You said agenda items.
Board meeting, I'm sorry.
I'll second. Sorry about
Okay. Any questions on them?
that. Yeah, on the page, on the part that deals with the superintendent search process with Joe Guillen, a large part of my concerns were that you, Mr. Sepulveda, were making direct contact with these vendors and bypassing the procurement process and the policy process of putting out a request for proposals or bids, and that's not reflected in the minutes. And that was something that I had made very clear.
Well, I haven't made any contact with Mr. Guillen, so
That's what
I don't know where
if
it comes from.
These were minutes that are minutes that reflect that meeting. In that meeting, I made comments to that effect. Oh. I got it, sorry. Is it on? Yeah, cool. My comment was that during this meeting related to this topic, I raised some concerns about Mr. Sepulveda making direct contact with New Mexico School Board Association, and that resulting in the proposal that came to the board for vote, bypassing all the requirements that the district has for procurement, particularly for professional services, and that wasn't noted here. And the personal contact with Mr. Sepulveda and Mr. Guillen, which was acknowledged by both you and Mr. Guillen at this meeting, is outside of his scope and outside of the scope of the school board without having consensus. And that's not reflected in the minutes.
Any other comments? Okay. We have a motion and a second.
I have a request to amend the motion so that it includes the corrections just mentioned. The tape can be reviewed to get the actual language, if that's fine. But that's an omission that I think needs to be addressed.
Is there an amendment?
Mr. President, and again, I'll say that if we're going to vote on these minutes right now, and they're going to be amended later, I think that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. If they're going to be amended, or if the tape is going to be listened to and see if there was something that needs to be changed, I move that we withdraw our motions and we table these again, if that's the wish of the chair.
And I would concur with that.
So will you withdraw your motion? You withdraw your motion?
I will, if
Okay.
that's the agreement.
Okay. Motion has been withdrawn. Do I hear a motion to table?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other comments? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Did we approve?
Motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of minutes of August the 23rd.
Who's doing the minutes first?
Mr. President, I'm just asking, did we already approve the agenda items? Because I wanted to move something. I might have missed it.
I couldn't hear you,
Did
Joseph.
we approve the agenda items? I wanted to move something. Did we not do that, or did I miss it?
We haven't approved them yet.
No, we haven't approved the minutes of... We haven't approved the minutes of August 23rd
No,
yet.
No, it's
the
just
agenda.
the agenda. We should have made a motion to approve the agenda before we went further on.
No, we normally approve the minutes before we go to the agenda, which is the next
Okay.
item,
Okay.
item C. I'm sorry.
I don't see anything on there
For approval
for
of agenda item.
approval of agenda. I do not see anything listed under number 2, A, B, C, D, E, or F. I don't see anything on approval of agenda.
No, it's not there. We're approving the minutes of August the 23rd.
Okay.
Do you hear motion?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
And I don't know if we want to second it with, or make the comment first, but I guess I'm second it so we can have the comments. I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Cordova, second by Mr. Guadiana. Any questions on the minutes of August 23rd?
I have another concern. This one on public input on page 3. There was a question about the, I don't know exactly what ELTP means, days, but that had to do with the staff, administrative staff being available during the days that we were going.
Those are ELTP days.
Can you tell me what ELPT?
ELTP is Extended Learning Time Program.
Okay. But the question was brought up more in the context of administration being there, and the discussion went into the 40-hour work week. And that's what the comments that I don't see here is the question as to why it is that admin staff can work 32 hours per week when their contract is that of a 40-hour week. And again, we can go through the minutes for the same thing. I mean, we can go through the tape for the same thing.
I don't think that they work by hours according to the contract.
Certainly, there are hourly ones, but there's also the review.
But the staff doesn't work by hours.
This that's not in the realm of this discussion. The realm of this discussion, what was reflected in it reflected in the minutes, is something that occurred, and this did occur in the meetings, and the minutes should reflect that. And there should be in an action, there should be a follow-up to assure that the contracts are being met and people aren't getting paid for less of a work week, getting paid more than what it is that the hours that they're working for. That can be something that can be reviewed later on, but right now, for the minutes, for the purposes of the minutes, that discussion was held, and that is a concern I have. And Mr. Holguin agreed with that concern. It was not limited just to the ELTP days.
Mr. President, the way I recollect what happened is Mr. Holguin brought up the question as to during those extra days that they're going through now, that the staff was not there. And it was explained by our superintendent that the staff was not there because we did not get dollars for the staff to be there on the Friday. And it was said that after those days are over with, we're still on a 4-day-a-week schedule. And if I recall, you raised the question that why aren't the staff there every Friday during the regular year?
Yes.
And it was explained because we're on a 4-day-a-week school, including administrators. So I think that's what I recall happened to answer that question. Because I think there was a confusion, because Mr. Holguin did bring up the extra days on Friday during this time that they're doing the extra days to make up for the hours. And you brought up that they should be there every Friday, which we are on a 4-day-a-week school, and that explains why they're not there on Friday.
Mr. Holguin brought up, and Mr. Holguin brought up that the staff, admin staff should be here when staff are here. And then it was put into the context of the ELTP payment for that. And Ms. Holguin, Terry, made the comments to that regard. And I said, that's not really what the matter is. The matter is that why aren't staff working and you've just verified that that conversation took place. And I just want the minutes to reflect that conversation took place, and it's a question of whether admin staff should be here. That was the question that was raised, and that's all I want reflected in the minutes.
So, Mr. President, we can go back and look at the minutes and revise it if we need to. We can go back and re-listen to the tape and revise the minutes.
Okay.
So do we want to table this one also?
And I would say,
Okay. Withdraw motion? And do I hear a motion to table?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova.
second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other questions, comments? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Kind of, Mr. President, as a point of order, the agenda should be approved.
Well, since it's not here, I don't think we can add an action item to the agenda.
Okay.
Any question? Okay, Joy.
Mr. President, I'd like to see if we could go ahead and, under the superintendent report, we have Valerie Kling here to report on Youth Substance Awareness and Prevention Coalition. I wanted to see if we could go ahead and have her come up at this time before we continue with our regular agenda items.
Okay.
Valerie? Yeah. To the podium, please.
There's one on the...
Good evening. Oh, I like this microphone. I'm usually a loud talker anyway. Good evening, board members, and thank you for having me. And hello, community members. My name is Valerie Kling. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I recently moved to the Grant County area. I'm originally from Las Cruces, New Mexico, but my family grew up here. So I decided to follow my direction, and I came here to move and took a job here, and I'm very happy to be here. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the Youth Substance Awareness and Prevention Coalition of Grant County, and I wanted in particular to bring our coalition to the board members' attention. I have a little bit of a script that I'm going to read from, just because I don't want to forget any important points. I've also provided you with packets. They're in the blue packets of everything that I'm going to be going over. So I'm the Grant County Coordinator with the Youth Substance Awareness and Prevention Coalition under the Center of Health Innovation. I have brought my trusted coalition member with me, Arlene Camarena. She is a victims advocate that works for the district attorney in order to help represent the importance of our coalition and our work. Our coalition members come from many sectors, including District Attorney's Office, JPO, CYFD, and CHI. I attribute the success of our awesome team to Esther Stewart, who was Chief JPO until July of this year. She worked so closely with our coalition for many years. To summarize our mission, it's to raise awareness in Grant County about youth substance misuse and thereby creating an environment that cultivates healthy, productive lifestyles through policy and advocacy change that promotes resilient and empowered youth. So basically what that means is that we work with the youth population ages 12 to once they become of age, so usually 21, as well as the 60-plus population, parents and families, to help reduce very specific things within our scope of work, which is alcohol misuse, which is something that's very close to my heart, as well as opioid misuse, which I hear, and I've seen the statistics that are very, they're actually on the rise in this community. So to highlight the importance, we are currently doing a needs assessment to better understand the current needs of our community. Our data is gathered from resources like the Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey, the New Mexico Community Survey, and the State Epidemiological Profile, as well as more. So just to highlight some of the statistics that are going on here in Grant County, this is county specific. Youth who use painkillers to get high has increased from 9.1% to 14.4% in the last 2 years. This is in grades 9 to 12. That's a 5.3% increase. Opioid overdose-related ED visit rates among adults has increased from 3.9 to 6.9% in the past 2 years. Alcohol use, youth binge drinking has also increased substantially, although not substantially, in the past 2 years among the youth grades 9 to 12. And one more, according to the YRRS, youth e-cigarette use, that's vaping, has increased from 17.8 to 24.7% in the last 2 years, grades 9 to 12. So these are some of the key issues that we address, again, that are important in my life, in my heart, and I'm sure that some of you have known people who have suffered from alcohol misuse or substance misuse. So these are the key factors we want to address. So I have provided a brief breakdown that the board has of our strategies within their packets. And I believe that there's extra if anyone would want one. I brought 7. So as board members, and most of all as educators, I thought to myself, what do you want? And how can YSAP help you with that? So I thought, there are probably a lot of things that you want or want to be improved on, but at the core of everything, you want the best for your students, or at least that's what it should be, and to help them become successful community members. You want services for your students that can help accomplish this. You also want lasting change. Although we do not have the funding within YSAP to provide everything that you need, we are here to help this community, and I'm passionate about that. We have identified some funding and grant opportunities that we can look at together in order to better the wellness of the students and the community. I've included these resources within the packet, and we can set up a separate meeting in order to go over them. It would always be a great pleasure to have you at my coalition meetings, our coalition meetings, I should say. So I've put the dates there not the dates, but I put the days of the week that they occur within those packets. I also want to provide my email address to the community members in case you'd like to attend our network meetings. So my email is vkling@chi-phi.org, and I can provide that for you again if you'd like. We also look at the BOTVINS curricula, which is a proven curricula that can provide some funding opportunities, as well as the DEA school curricula. We have DEA school partners that will come and teach this curricula if need be. So I wanted to offer up some of these services. I wanted to come and introduce myself and my coalition and explain who we were, because not a lot of community members know about us. And I want you to know that we're passionate about what we do, and thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'm here. Sorry.
I see the parts like where you have explanation of the, well, as you call it, the science of addiction, and exploratory science-based animated videos that you have to teach students. Is this going to be something that will be integrated into the classroom, or is this going to be just on one-to-one or group?
So I'm not sure exactly what that could look like. It very well could be integrated into the classroom if that's what we decide. The thing that I know about it, and I'm assuming that you're talking about the DEA handout in there, the DEA curricula, the one with all the pictures on it.
This one?
Sorry, I need to see it up close.
It's operational prevention. Operation prevention.
Oh, does it at the top, does it say Discover, Connect, Prevent?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's the DEA curricula. So to be honest with you, I don't know exactly what that looks like right now, but we could definitely talk about it, and I could find out anything that you want to know. So at this very moment, I'm not completely sure, but in my eyes, I feel like it very well could be implemented into a classroom if that's what we wanted.
And tobacco use, or what's it called, the e-cigarettes as well?
Yeah, so we have, through our coalition, we are funded through a grant. It's called SINAR, that addresses tobacco misuse as well as the opioid and alcohol misuse. So that is one of the factors that we could address as well. I can see via the statistics that vaping is a big problem. So Grant County isn't the only county in which it's become a problem. So yes, that would be addressed as well.
So my question now would be to Mrs. Varela. Do we have any such thing incorporated into our curriculum regarding what she's offering?
No, and just what DARE brings in, and I know they do talk about vaping and tobacco use and cigarette smoking as part of the DARE program as well. But what we wanted to do today was just let Valerie give a presentation on what they have to offer, and then we will continue to work with her to see what it is that we want to bring into our schools and what they can support us with.
And I do want to emphasize that. Like I said, I'm here to introduce myself, answer your questions, whatever you want, to the best of my ability. But I would like a follow-up meeting or some coalition attendance, really, because that's how we're going to make the change in our community. And the DARE program, that's one thing that I was going to bring up. It's a great program. I love it. I was a part of it. Everyone was. But I feel like with a little bit more encouragement, it could go a long way. With a little bit more education, especially in families where that's not always brought up, which, believe it or not, substance misuse is not brought up in a lot of families. In fact, it's encouraged. So, which is why we have a 4th-degree felony campaign. That's another thing that I wanted to bring up with the DWI program. YSAP is currently doing a 4th-degree felony campaign to educate family members that if you provide alcohol to minors or if you provide drugs to minors, it will ruin your life. It's a 4th-degree felony.
So, Mrs. Varela, will there then be a follow-up at some point later on?
So what we want to do, what we would want her to do is come back and meet with us during one of our admin meetings, and she can present this information to the administrators, and then we'll look to see what we can do to move forward and incorporate any of these ideas into our classrooms.
Okay.
Yes, I would love to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. It was nice to say hi to everyone.
Thank you. Okay, this moves us to item C.
Okay, item C under action items. We do have a donation from the Center of Health Innovation to the Skills USA Club in the amount of $3,000. And I recommend approval.
You heard the recommendation. Do you hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second. Second by Mr. Cordova. Any questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please, let's make sure that we send them a thank you.
Item D, use of facilities for the Cobra Cafeteria. We're going to table this. We did make contact with the high school today, and there's still some other paperwork and channels that they need to go through before we can approve this, so we're going to table this for another meeting.
Okay. You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion to table? Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, items E and F will go together. We do have Jackie Riley, who has put together a scope of work for the search of the superintendent, along with the legal notice. So, Ms. Riley?
Good evening, everyone. Mr. President, members of the board. Within your packet, you will see that you have the scope of work. This is to provide superintendent search services to include planning to search and the setting the criteria, advertising, screening, interviews of finalists, and the selection.
And this will be posted where?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
As a part of the scope of work, it'll be posted, or?
Well, this is only the draft, so if you need me to add anything, take away, I'm sure you've all reviewed it. Once it is approved, then we can go along with the legal notice that follows, and that will go in the newspaper so that we can start putting it out there.
One thing I would like to see on there are updates in each of these sections, updates to the board.
I believe that they will be working with the board to look for our superintendent.
By definition of the board, we're talking all the board or just individuals?
I believe it's the whole school board, all of Cobra School Board. If you look on the third, it says project managers, Cobra School Board of Education. So it does mean all of you.
Yeah, I know it, but I was saying that would be good to have it on all parts of it, on every one of the bullets. Well, not every one of the bullets, but every one of the sections. The planning, the search criteria, the advertising, the screening, the interviews, certainly the selection.
I mean, I can add it, but I believe that it's a given because it is up there.
Well, if it's
but
only,
I can add it.
Yeah, if it's only in one and it's not in the others, it's not as implicit as we would. I'd appreciate it being added.
Okay.
Well, when she says the board, it should come to all the board members.
I know, but still, I'd still like to see it listed on each one of each one of the sections, the planning, the advertising, the screening, the interviews, and the selection.
Okay, I can add it.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
And then the next part, it goes, it is an action item, so it does need to be approved. And once that is approved, then we can move on to the legal notice, which also will need approval.
What was the second part?
Okay, so first we have to approve the scope of work. So I recommend approval of the scope of work as presented by Ms. Riley with the addition of board updates at the end of each section.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion? So moved. Motion by Mr. Cordova. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, legal notice, the next, and then we'll be at public input after this next section, and then we'll allow you all the opportunity. Is that okay, Mr. President? Or do you want to do the public input now?
No, it's not public input, it's a question in regards to the action items.
It's public input.
We had generally we have public input on things that are on the agenda.
We do. We have that coming up right after the legal notice
it.
approval.
We have it after the fact?
No, sir. No, sir.
Item 4 is public input,
Yeah. So once,
dealing with the agenda.
once we go through the legal notice approval, then it's public input.
The intent of the public input on agenda items is so that they can voice them before they're acted on.
That's my concern, is that you're going to take action on items that the public doesn't have an opportunity to provide questions on. That's my concern. And again, it does state that the board president does have at his discretion to call on people to talk. Again, that's all I'm asking, because once you vote on these, and then you get public input, it's a moot point at that point in time. So I just have questions in regards to items C and F on the agenda. And my public input, when we get there, I do have public input in regards to the agenda as presented and posted right now. So that was just, I raised my question earlier, my hand earlier, and I'm just here to ask questions in regards to these action items. So can I ask them, or do we wait till after you guys vote?
We got one more thing here to do, unfinished business, and then we go to public input. And to remind you again, this is only a draft that we have here to take action on the draft to proceed, and then we'll come back and put it out to the public and see if that's what they want to do. But we have already voted that we are going to go with one of these companies for superintendent search. What this is for is to lay out so that those people that can help us find the superintendent will be able to bid or apply to help us in doing the search.
There's going to be one more round of...
Yes, because this is only a draft.
No, it isn't. The recommendation is to finalize it as...
Approve the draft.
No.
It says a draft right on it.
Is the recommendation to approve the draft and keep it as a draft, or is the recommendation to make it final?
So my recommendation was that we approve the scope of work as presented by Ms. Riley with the addition of the updates.
In other words, final. In other words, it would be the final, correct?
That was the way I made the recommendation, as a
Yes.
final, not as a draft.
Okay. So where do we want to go?
So it's up to you, Mr. President, if you want to recognize the public comments. I know we already voted on it, but if you want to recognize the public comments, because this would be the final scope of work to be put out for people to apply to do the job.
Okay. So we've already voted on E. Can we go to F?
So we're saying no public comment.
They can still come in.
But, okay, he also has concerns about E. So we'll have him comment after we vote?
Well, what is its comments?
So the board already did vote.
But not on E.
Right, they voted to accept, yeah, you voted to accept the scope of work.
Yes, but
Yes,
not...
not on F.
Not on
Okay,
F.
I'm sorry, F, yeah.
I still don't think
And
that,
folks, I cannot see you out there if you raise your hand.
The lights blind us.
I still don't think that as far as item F goes, that he should ask questions or the public should ask questions if the board hasn't heard.
Yeah, Ms. Riley needs to present on it first.
He said E and F.
Okay, so go ahead, Ms. Riley.
Go ahead, Jackie.
So the F is legal notice for search of superintendent. So this is the legal notice that will actually go out in the newspaper. And once again, it just says what we are looking for. I have went ahead and put in a due date of September. I've left that blank so that we can determine what would be the due date of by when we want those quotes to come in. And then I have made it very clear that quotes received after the due date will not be accepted.
That's a real quick turnover, September.
and that's open for discussion.
But
Okay,
I left it, yeah. I mean, we can change it to October if
Change to
that's,
October, November, or whatever the board wants.
I'd be much more inclined to,
10 days. At least 10 days.
so once we post it, because we have approved E, once we post it, we have 10 days, so we will calculate 10 days, and that's when the due date will be.
that's absolute? It has to be 10 days, or can it be at our discretion?
Minimum
Yeah,
of 10
it's-
days.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay,
posted.
okay.
But the date for posting is up for discussion for you all to make that decision. And then whatever date that is, say that we want quotes by, let's just throw it out there, October 31st. We count back the 10 days so that we make sure that we post it correctly. So we have it posted at least 10 days.
A minimum of 10 days.
Okay, yeah, so if you post it, if we approve it after all discussions and everything else, if we approve it, you can post it like Monday or whatever the
If
case.
that's what we choose to do, and then we calculate the dates based on whatever date we
Well,
decide.
there's no need to calculate the date except for a minimum of, so
A minimum,
we can
yes.
exceed, so we can look at something like the latter part of October, which is something I would like to see in terms of giving people, companies the opportunity to put together a proposal. Okay.
Any other questions?
Do you want to recognize?
Yeah.
Do I need to go up there or stay down here?
It's probably better up here because it's a recorded one and your comments will be better heard.
Yeah, they could barely hear you, Mr. Escada, so you'd have to come up here, please.
And this is on item F and E, E and F.
Well, yes, I guess comments on E, but questions on F since action was already taken on E. So, okay. Well, I guess in regards to the scope of work, thank you, Ms. Varela. Well, first of all, Mr. Board President, members of the board, members of the community. Again, in regards to the scope of work for the search for the superintendent, I was fortunate enough to be able to obtain a copy of the board packet. Cost me $21, but anyways, I got it on Thursday of last week, so I was able to review it, and I would just like to point out to the board, or maybe ask Ms. Riley, the scope of work that was in the packet, how was that arrived at? And was that compared to any documents that the district had received in the past?
So New Mexico Board Association does provide a general guideline of what school boards are looking for. That's what we based it on.
Okay.
What was the source of those guidelines? What was the source of those guidelines?
New Mexico School Board Association?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's just, and in regards to the legal notice that you're going to be taking action on, is this actual qualification-based, or is it going to be price-based? Because there's a difference.
Is it going to be what? Again, I can't
There's
hear you.
Because the way it's stated in the legal notice, it says school district is seeking quotes. So when you seek a quote, you're actually asking for dollars. But you can also ask, when you do a proposal, it's qualification-based only with no price within the proposal. So you're selecting somebody based on their qualifications, not by the dollars provided. Because when I looked at the scope of work and I look at the legal notice, it's going to be hard, at least from my opinion, from somebody to be able to provide you a dollar amount so that when it does come, if say for example you received 3 quotes, in my opinion, it's going to be hard to compare apples to apples when, for example, the advertising isn't even identified whether you're going to have in the newspaper, where you're going to advertise, because I would assume that that cost would need to be included within the quote. So that's my question, is the legal notice is as a quote, which is price-based, versus a proposal, which is, or on qualifications only. So that's my question is, are you guys going to go qualifications only, select somebody, and then enter into negotiations for price, or are you going to ask for price right off the bat?
No, we can't ask for price right off the bat, because then if I'm one that's gonna put in for it, and you've got a price there of $10,000 or $20,000, I'll make mine so it's right there. Mr. Cordova gonna put in too. He'll put his right there also. You, if you're gonna put in for it, you're gonna be the same way. So dollar amount, we cannot put in there on a contract.
That's not what he's asking. He's asking for the
search committee, the search proposal.
yeah. He's
For contracted services, the base to do it from is proposals, not necessarily for.
So for contracted services, we had put it out as quotes, but we can change it into a request for a proposal, and that will go along with Mr. Esqueda, where they will put their qualifications, and they will pretty much make sure that they abide by the scope of work, and that means that they can provide everything that we are looking for in that search.
So what he's trying to say is that what we're asking for right now is for each of the vendors to tell us how much they think it's going to cost them to do it.
Correct, based on the legal advertisement
Yes.
in draft form.
So it's not like we're setting an amount. We're asking them to give us an amount, and we don't have anything to see. What
Exactly.
That's why it's for proposals. If you submit a proposal, you're gonna, down at the bottom, you say, I can do this for this amount.
We're not seeking proposals, we're seeking quotes. And that's the issue with the, and
I guess
so the clarification is great, I think. We can make that,
Mr. Sepulveda, the simplest way is to delete the word quote from your legal advertisement and put qualification-based selection or something like that. But again, it's, the way you have it worded now, in my opinion, is incorrect. And again, it should, the word quote should be deleted, and again, either proposal, qualification-based, or something like that. That's something similar to that terminology should be put into the legal notice. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to make things complicated. I just wanted to bring that up prior to you guys taking a vote, because if you would have voted on this, you would be advertising something asking for dollars instead of qualifications.
And along those lines with your comment, one thing I'd like to see is methodology, not just qualifications. So the process that they use. So in the case of, I don't like the idea of going for on basis of qualifications, because it doesn't include the final price. That would be negotiated. I'd rather have the estimate of what they would charge and the methodology that they would use to meet the requirements of the scope of work with the dollar amount.
And that's easily changed. Like he said, instead of using the word quote, we'll use a request for proposal.
If you use proposal, yeah, I think I like proposal a lot more.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions?
No, that was just it in regards to what documents were used to come up with the scope of work under item E, and then again, item F. My opinion should be it should delete the word quote from the legal notice.
Thank you for that observation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terry, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, the standard for the state is either request for quotes, request for proposal, or you can do it as an invitation to bid, which would be based on price as well. So you would just want to change the word from quote to proposal, and it also says the state
Thank you, Terry.
Now the discussion. So I recommend approval of the legal notice as presented by Ms. Riley with the change from quote to proposal. And then we need to determine the dates before we approve though, or after we approve.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
We need to determine the date. So I would like to suggest something around October 22nd or 29th.
Right, okay. So if we are going to change that from quotes to proposals, they will need a little bit more time so that they can, that's a little bit more extensive. So we will need a little bit more time
So
to
like,
put as a deadline.
like October 29th then? Would give,
Or the 1st of November.
If we put that out, the last week in September, it would give 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks.
4 weeks should be enough. So 4 weeks, that'll give us 4 weeks to,
okay. And Mr. Sepulveda mentioned the 1st of November, and I'm fine with that too, either one.
Well, I do have a good follow-up question then. I understood Mr. Sepulveda saying that what you voted on under item E was a draft, and then that the public was going to be given the opportunity, or at least the board was going to be given an opportunity to review the final document before it gets advertised. That was my understanding of Mr. Sepulveda's comment earlier.
Yeah, that was my understanding, that was a draft. We're voting on the draft, and then when the final thing is set, then we come back and vote on it. So that can extend that time some more on the legal notice.
That's what he said, though.
When I made the recommendation to approve on the scope of work, my recommendation was that we approve the scope of work as presented by Ms. Riley and added board updates at the end of every section. My recommendation did not state that we approve it as a draft.
Mr. President, I assumed that it was a draft copy or a draft because in our packet, the sheet says draft. So that's where I picked up draft from. I didn't hear you say the final or the draft.
Okay.
That's why I thought it was a draft. And I thought it was only fair because we have
Two board members
two
not here.
board members missing that should have an input, or I'm sure that they'll have a say-so into some of this. Maybe not, but they should at least have a shot at it.
So,
That's wrong.
so what we could do, since that was your interpretation of it for at least two of you, and it does say draft on it, what we can do is we can add the recommendations to this, bring it back next board meeting without draft, and we'll hopefully have our other two board members here, and we can approve the final if that's what you all want to do.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was a draft, because of the thing that said draft on it.
Yes.
And just as a matter of process, we don't need to approve a draft. A draft is given to us, and then we take that and modify it, and we don't take action on a draft.
No.
But I'm fine with everything that's being suggested.
My intent was not draft, but since that's what two board members understood.
That's fine.
I think
I'm good with
that's
it being
what
for
we
next
do.
week. That's fine.
What we're doing on the minutes.
Okay.
But
So let's go ahead
Okay.
and bring it to us as a regular,
Without the word draft on it for
the
next
actual
week.
without the draft on it. Okay?
So does that push our November 1st deadline back? Because then we'll approve it next Monday, the scope of work? Are we still okay with November 1st, or do we need to push it back 1 week?
I don't think so.
You want to
Yeah.
table the legal
We
notice
can-
until
we
next
can-
week?
We can table the legal notice and bring it to us, both of them at the same time next Monday.
Okay.
Okay?
But since Jackie's reworking the legal notice, what date do we want to go ahead and look at to add on to that? Do we want to leave November 1st? Do we want to add November 8th?
That's fine.
Okay, November 8th.
Okay?
Okay, so we'll table the legal notice, F.
Okay. Now we bring this to unfinished business.
One quick question, and so do you guys need to amend or rescind the action you took on item E? Because right now you voted on item E, so the action is to move forward with that scope of work as amended, so do you guys have to rescind that action or amend it so that you can move forward and review it again? That's my question.
The understanding is, and I agree that I thought it was different, it was final, but the explanation that Ms. Varela gave is that 2 of the 3 board members thought that the action that was being taken was to continue it as a draft. And so that would then not require any further action if it was interpreted that way.
Because the final, so if 2 board members approved it as a draft, then next week we bring back the final proposal of the scope of work not listed as a draft.
Okay, again.
And we will revote next week.
Well, thank you for the clarification, just for myself and the public's, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Yep, public input.
Okay. There's no unfinished business, moves us to public input. At this time, we'll entertain anything from the public in reference to our agenda. Somebody out there? No?
We have somebody coming up.
I would make a comment on our agenda is we put the public input for agenda items before anything other, well, after the minutes, if we do the approval of the agenda, actually, maybe even at the very beginning, it should be the first thing, because that way we approve the agenda later on. It'd be better to have the public input on the agenda items precede our approval of the agenda.
Okay. I'll get with Joyce and Sandy and see what we can work out on that one. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members, superintendent, and the public. Your name? I am Horace Jaramillo. I have a vested interest in the Cobra system. I have 2 grandkids attending school. So I am a partner to what you gentlemen are doing. The past few years, we've been challenged globally. This nation has had to adjust to common standards that will never be known as common practice anymore. And the Educational Public Service Program is no exception. Changes in methods, process, communication, teaching skills had to be adjusted to satisfy the ever-changing COVID pandemic recovery mandates. Introduction of technology and teaching methods and services were all adjusted. Teachers, administration, and operational staff came together to meet these challenges. Cooperation between everybody was the key to where we are right now. The introduction of media coverage to the Cobre School Board brings me here with disappointment in the ethical and procedural conduct of this board. It seems that no focus on seeking mutual solutions to resolve issues faced by these educators seem to be of interest. The breakdown of family structure, social media disruption, and the national political division all are hampering the objectives to meet the mission statement that is actually stamped into your marquee signs out there. That statement is preparing students for life. Now, I've been following the board meetings online. I observe that this board is never prepared for the agenda. Today is a final example. But you are prepared to challenge each other on any topic. Any board member that introduces a debatable objection should actually come in to introduce a resolution mutually. If a board member is well informed on policies and procedures, this board member is not introducing his knowledge as a tool, but as ammunition against another board member, just to bring a board member down. This board, in order to prepare for the meetings, should set up a day to meet with the superintendent as 2 board members at a time. This will not violate quorum rules. My recommendation is to mix the two members, because I see that you guys don't get along. Now, when I was serving as county manager, I would bring in the county manager, the county commissioners don't like each other, I bring them together. This is an actual working tool for the superintendent to fully explain items that are to be brought to the agenda. It'll also offer a tool to a board member to bring opinions, recommendations, to be able to resolve all these issues before you guys come before meeting. It's total confusion here. Just like teachers are creative in the practice skills of education, this board needs to be creative to support the teachers and the operational staff. This does not mean funding. It means gratitude, understanding, and assurance that they're supported. Board members should get involved in activities, programs, and functions. This will promote an educator, parent, and administrative partnership. I have made notes of the meetings that I've observed. And the question came, is why are teachers resigning? Why are teachers retiring? And why are teachers and staff members transferring? This question should be, how do we keep an educator in the profession? And more so, how do we keep this educator, staff member, or support staff in the Cobra School District? My recommendation to the board is don't look from the bottom up. Look from the top down. And that's my observation. No board member should act as an administrator on day-to-day operations. That's why you have a superintendent. If you happen to go to a school and observe something that is a concern, you follow the same process that I do. I'm an equal partner here. I'm a parent. You are a board member when you come before a quorum. You are not an administrator. You are not a supervisor. And that means no micromanaging. This is a practice that's been going on. Okay, because of media coverage of your board meetings have become the newest negative entertainment in the public. And it's comparable to the bullying and schoolyard fighting that's going on to be a problem in our school district. Now again, I have a vested interest in the Cobra School District, having 2 grandchildren attending the educational program at Cobra. I want to make this school the school district that offers a foundation of life achievement for my child, my children, and every child that attends this school district. And that's where you guys come in. Now, I'm not here to tell you that I could do better, but I'm here to tell you, as a board member with a mission statement to prepare students for life, you should do better. My name is Horacio Jaramillo, and I present my full statement as public record. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
I'd like to respond briefly. This section was actually for items that were on the agenda, and I would like to respond in the appropriate section, which would be the open public, the second version of the public input, which is towards the end, and that's items that are not necessarily on the agenda. But I appreciate your statements, and I would like to comment to them.
Well, again, George Esqueda, for those of you that don't know me. But again, I think Mr. Jaramillo did a very great job in expressing his views, his opinions, his concerns. You know, I know I've come before you in the past, tried to say something similar to what Mr. Jaramillo has said, but he did a heck of a lot better job than I have. So again, I want to applaud you for your statements, Mr. Jaramillo. So I'm here now under public input to ask a question, and maybe it's something that you need to ask your attorneys, but in all your agendas in the past, there has been approval of the agenda as an action item. So right now, there was no approval of the agenda, so any actions that you're taking right now, are they really enforceable, is my question. So I just want to put that out there. I would think that you may need to consult with your attorney on this, with any action that is being taken, since it wasn't approved since the beginning, just something that you may want to look at. And then again, to reiterate what I've mentioned via email and in statements that, and kind of what Mr. Jaramillo stated, that, you know, a lot of times it appears you guys show up here unprepared. You know, I pointed out a couple of times in the past, errors in the agenda, and again, and I've stated this in the past, we're all human, we all make mistakes. You know, I'm not doing this to belittle anybody, make them feel bad, but what I pointed out in the past is that somebody needs to review the agenda before it gets posted, whether that's the board president, the superintendent, because I don't know the process right now. But for example, I went on Wednesday, I printed the agenda in the morning, looked at it in the afternoon, the afternoon agenda was different than the morning agenda. You go to your website, you look at your August 23rd agendas, there's 2 agendas on there posted with the same date of August 23rd. So if things are going to get posted, they should be posted with a draft, and then something that's going to come before you in your board packets should be labeled as final. Because if not, it's going to lead to confusion with those that do make the effort to go to the administration office, pick up a hard copy, take it with them, and then they show up here. Then they listen to the agenda or the meeting and wonder where some of these items are coming from when, in fact, what they have is different than what's being discussed today. So just want to throw that out there again for your consideration, to maybe if you can look to improve on the agenda before it actually gets posted. So again, so those are my comments, and I'll stand for any questions that you may have of me, since I'm always up here providing my comments and asking questions. So I'll give you guys the opportunity to ask me questions as well, if there are any.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr.
Thank
Skay.
you.
Okay, this brings us to administration.
Under administration, we have Jackie Riley. She'll be presenting on 2 RFP recommendations, one for OT services and one for deaf and hard of hearing teacher.
Mr. President, members of the board, once again, so the district requested competitive seal proposals for a school-based occupational therapist. So this is what this is. It's the RFP number 2021-08-16 OT. And this is something that you had in your packet. And it also comes with a notice of intent to award. And it's just informational, just so that you know what the district has done.
Where are these people going to work at? Or are they district-wide?
They're going to be district-wide, yes.
These are new positions, or is it?
It's actually providing a service. They're actually contracted services, and this one is for the occupational therapist. And if you notice at the bottom, on one of them it does say $16 per week. It should say 16 hours per week. So these people are working for 16 hours per week.
The one OT services, it is not a new service. It is a service that is, we did have last year as well. The deaf and hard of hearing teacher, that one is a new position based on individual student IEP requirement or need.
So budget-wise, where's the funding for this?
These 2 positions were budgeted at the beginning of the year, actually, since when we were working on budget in the spring, because we did know that these were going to be 2 items that we were probably going to be needing based on our caseload that we had in the spring.
And the second one that Ms. Varela brought up, it's the request for proposal for it was for a teacher for a deaf and hard of hearing student. So, and all of that information is right there on how many hours she's working, and also the intent to award that position to that person.
As processed, normally these go through the budget committee if you're putting new positions?
This is
contract?
Right, it's a contracted service.
Okay, even contract, if it's an additional cost that would go through, and I'm not saying it's not needed, but it's just the process that we keep undermining, which is the budget committee, and that really is.
I can answer that question. Mr. Guadiana, actually for the DHH teacher, the deaf and hard of hearing teacher, it was put into last year's IDEA B grant application budget. So it was discussed in the spring. So as we got notified from NMSD that we would have a transfer student coming in the fall. So that was budgeted for half-time teacher. And actually we're sharing this teacher with Silver. So that's, and if this student needs more services or needs to come, we will make those accommodations accordingly.
I'm not disagreeing with the need at all.
Okay, and then
I'm just saying that it's a process that should have gone through the budget.
It did. It went last year.
Yeah, because the application was presented to the board back in the spring.
Yes.
As part of
It was presented as.
finance, first in finance, and the occupational therapy was included in the operational budget that was approved last spring as well.
It was not approved in finance. It was approved on the board, and it was approved on the board on the same basis.
It doesn't get approved in finance, it was discussed in finance
that entire part was presented to the board, and the rationale that, oh, this is just an application, it doesn't need to go to the, just like it. Okay. The operational budget was not presented to the finance. We worked on it, but not as a final. We didn't go over positions, and we didn't go over grants.
And Mr. President,
But,
for
okay,
the OT,
nevertheless.
actually, we had a different contractor that canceled the contract with all schools. It was Amplified Therapy last year. They canceled our contract, so there was a void. We needed to go out for a proposal to fill that void.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, this moves us to Superintendent Report.
Mr. President, I'm going to change the order a little bit of Superintendent Report because I do have Danielle Aguirre here who's going to help me present on one of the sections. Victor, if you could bring my handout up, please. So we just wanted to give the board a little bit of an update on where we are with COVID cases. So what we have done is we have looked at each school individually as far as COVID cases are concerned. Overall, between students and staff as a district, our positivity rate is 1.45%. That's between staff and students. We broke it down here by school. So what I reported here with the 1.45, that's throughout the whole year. What we have up here, we're going to be posting it on our district webpage. We're going to keep track of positivity rates over a 14-day period. So this 14-day period that you see up here is from September 3rd through September 17th. So at Bayard Elementary, we had 2 cases, Central 1, Hurley 1, San Lorenzo 1, Snail 3, and Cobra 1. And over to the far right side, you can see the positivity rate. We are below 1% positivity rate at all schools except Snail, where we are at a 1.08% positivity rate.
And for the school year, I don't know if you want to know this, but the majority of those cases were student, and only 6 were staff. So we have been doing really good with our interventions and those things. And many of these cases were from outside sources, not from exposure within the classroom or in the school, you know, within, I think one was in a game or a Saturday, what was it? An out of...
Extracurricular activity.
Yes. And then, but everything else has been outside of school.
So for the whole year, we've had 13 students positive, 6 staff members, and that's where we came up with a positivity rate of 1.45 throughout the whole school year. So we do have COVID safe practices in place. We were required to come up with the COVID mitigation interventions, which I will be presenting to the board next week. I will include this in your packet. So what we've done is we've looked at it as a district. What are some of the safe practices that we're going to put into place when we have 0 to 2% positivity rate, 3%, 5%, or greater than 5%, and we'll give you that information next week.
Can you add an additional field, which would be the number of days that students have been out because of COVID, and teachers for that matter, 2 separate fields?
Well, that is always going to be the same. Like, according to the New Mexico COVID toolkit written by New Mexico PED and the Department of Health, quarantine and isolation. Isolation is for those who have tested positive with COVID, and quarantine are for those who are positive contacts or have been identified as positive contacts. And that day period is always 10 days.
Right, but I think he's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Guadiana, Danielle, I think what he's asking is how many days total have students missed, how many days total have staff missed?
Like as a
So
whole?
I'm not sure if you have, you know, I
Okay.
know you have to really go back and look at that on a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
Because Danielle, what she does is she does track the date that they go out and the date that they're allowed to come back. We do report on a weekly basis how many people in each building are having to quarantine, whether it's students or staff. We're not making that delineation between students and staff, but to go back and see how many total days staff and or students have been quarantined, it'll take us, we won't be ready for that next week.
No, that's fine, but the data would be good because we're just looking at percentages and I'm kind of like drawing a blank as to what the actual impact of that is.
Well, because the state looks at positivity rates, and that's what we're
No,
looking
I
at.
understand. I understand the same, but that data would help better put it in context.
And then and you're only wanting for those positive cases? The days
no,
missed for those
not
positive
necessarily,
cases and then
the number of
any
days that
positive contacts, correct?
I think he's asking, so let's say that 5 people had to quarantine. Since the beginning of the year, how many missed days of school is that for students? How many missed days is that for staff?
Okay.
Yep.
But in a sense,
And the reason I was asking if it was just related to positive cases and just related to those who were exposed to those positive cases is because we also have parents choosing to quarantine their students when they refuse to test and they have COVID-like symptoms. So those students as well.
What I'm looking for is to kind of get a feeling as to if we're moving towards hybrid. If there's that many absences.
So based on our COVID plan, which we'll share with you next week, we wouldn't look at a hybrid until we're greater than 5%, and we have it broken down by school. So again, next week when we present, we'll be able to tell you, for example, 5% at Cobra would be 17 students, Snail 14, Bayard 11, Central 10, Hurley 8, and San Lorenzo 5. So we'd really be looking at higher numbers before we would consider going hybrid or fully remote. But again, every time we have a situation, we debrief, multiple people debrief, and we make decisions as a team based on every individual case and who all is involved and how many people are involved. So
that's good data.
Everything is different.
That's good data, and you can't extract that from the table that's there. And that's why I'm asking for the additional data, Sue. Or you can share the report as such, whichever way works better, so at least we can get a context of how many people are not coming.
And in talking with parents, that's what they want to know.
What's that?
This is what parents want to know. How many cases are in each building at any given time? So that's why I said that's what we're going to be posting on our webpage, because when we send home a letter to the parents that there's a case at Cobra, they don't know, is it 1 case, is it 5 cases, is it 10 cases? So posting this information up on our webpage will be really beneficial for parents to look at that, to know how many cases are in each building.
But the number of cases is constantly changing, so is this
We're
historic?
going to, if you'll notice, as I stated, we're going to carry it for a 2-week period. So that 2-week period is from September 3rd to September 17th. We're going to change this every week because our numbers could change every week. So every week we'll carry for a 2-week period our positivity rates.
Okay.
But in a sense, those that are quarantined or are at home with a positive test, they're really not missing any days because they are online, right?
No, what we're doing with most of those students is we're sending them packets and they're meeting with the teacher regarding their assignments, but we're not doing, we're not piping them into the classroom as we did last year.
But they're still doing their work, right?
Yes, they are still keeping up with their work, correct.
There was one case this year that we did do that. The whole classroom was quarantined, as well as the teacher, and they all went home, and the teacher chose to teach online for that period of time.
Because it was the whole class. So again, every situation is different.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, fundraisers. We do have several fundraisers. The one that we postponed earlier on the use of facilities, that's going to be by the class of 2023 for a menudo and pozole sale. The purpose is to raise money for prom. We have a volleyball fundraiser. It's a breast cancer awareness fund. They're going to be selling t-shirts in reference to breast cancer awareness. And what they do with the money they collect there is they donate it to a community member who's a survivor of breast cancer. We have Cobra Cheer. Right now they have a camp for the younger girls that want to be cheerleaders, younger females or males who want to be cheerleaders. And that camp is to help pay for cheer items and choreography. We also have a fundraiser from class of 2024. They're going to be selling candy bars, and the purpose is to raise funds for class events, prom, graduation, etc. We have a fundraiser from the Hurley Elementary Library, Harmony Phillips, and what they are doing is they are collecting donated clothing and bedding from the community, and they will be donating it to Savers in Las Cruces, and based on the number of pounds that they collect and donate, they get a donation from Savers. We also have, this already happened at the bonfire. We did have the smashing of cars. Money was collected and will be used for homecoming and prom decorations. We also have class of 2023 that sold hot dogs, water, and Gatorade at the bonfire. Purpose of that is to raise money for the prom. We have cross country selling fan cloth. We have Snail football doing a car wash. I guess this has already happened. This was in August. To buy spirit packs, foods, and awards. And then we have Cobra Cheer fundraiser at Golf Park, which was September 3rd to 5th, lemonade sale and face painting. So some of the fundraisers that we have been getting, we've been getting the forms a little bit later after the fact. So I have talked with Ms. Montoya, I have talked with Mr. Avalos, I have talked with Nelson Diaz that we do want them. I know they're informational items only for the board, but we really would want them to come to us before the activities actually happen. So we're working on trying to get those to us in a more timely basis. We also have Mr. Avalos here. He wants to talk to us a little bit about their new Snail Mascot. Snail Mascot logo.
Good evening, Madam Superintendent and members of the board. As we have been taking care of the last little over a year, getting our new school mascot underway, of course, now also came the opportunity for us to put up a new mascot. And one thing about mascots, obviously it's more for, it's kind of like you're giving your business, your organization a little bit of a kind of a that way people can identify with that. Could I borrow this?
Yep.
And of course, in designs of these, you look at similar types of designs that are going on around the country. Obviously, there's a lot of miners out there, just locally. The UTEP miners, you know, they had a certain type of logo. You know, you look at the miners up at Socorro Tech, and obviously you want to design something that gives a good indication of what it represents, and also you want to put in the letters that represent the school. For example, SMS. As I presented it to some of the adults and some of the kids, you know, we said Snail Middle School, and it was appropriate that minors would be able to, the M in the middle of that logo would definitely be a highlight, not only giving a light to our initials, but also to the minor, and then of course the pick that's in there representing the minors of our community and over the generations. These, as you know, over the course of years, logos can change. They can be adapted. Different organizations over the course of Cobra athletics have definitely gone and made a few changes here and there. But this is the one we came up with, and we thought it's simple, but yet it's very effective in showing not only our lettering, but also depicting the minor that we are now representing. Yeah. Hopefully, it has a nice little. I think it has a nice little tone to it here, and gets the job done. But also, you know, when people are walking down the streets of Grant County, they can see that this is definitely. They can identify quickly that it's a Snail Middle School minors. Okay. Thank you very much.
I did also want to inform the board on the ARP application that was brought before the board twice, once for the first 2/3 and then for the other third. It was approved by the state. We are working on an MOU with Head Start. We're almost complete with that. We do have Misty Pugmire that will be coming and presenting at the next board meeting. And hopefully we'll have the MOU to share with the board at that time. Also in your packet is a copy of the district literacy plan. We are required to have a district literacy plan for the state and for our Circle and CLSD grants, so I did put a copy in there just for your information. On the policy services, Ms. Dana Davis was contacted by the policy services. John F. Kennedy, correct, Ms. Davis? He will be the person that'll be working with our board. So what he's doing right now, Ms. Davis, correct me if I'm wrong, he's reviewing all the forms and everything that we had been given previously, correct? Okay. And then he'll make an appointment, or at some point we'll make an appointment with him to come down, correct?
At this point, he's reviewing everything. He's going to reset my information, so I don't know if it's going to extend to the power reviewing policies that will be Dr. Nolan. So as soon as he gets that information out to me, I'll be able to get with the board and I'll get with our president and let him know when we meet and discuss what he's given me, and then we can move forward.
Okay, and then as a reminder, on Tuesday, September 28th, 5:30 to 7:30, we do have the New Mexico School Boards Association virtual Fall Region 8 meeting. And you all should have gotten an invitation. I think they sent it out, and I did forward it as well. Did you get that too? Okay, okay. Okay. All right. And that, Mr. President, concludes my superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. Our student rep.
Oh, wait. I have one more thing. Sorry.
Okay.
This came in today. I just wanted to share this. We did have a person, Cindy Sims, send a letter to Mr. Avalos, and I thought it was worth sharing. He did send it to me. It says, Dear Mr. Avalos, I was driving to a game in Lordsburg on the 11th and stopped for a bite to eat at Wendy's in Deming. Your volleyball team from Snail was there, and I have to say how delighted I was to watch them. They were so polite with everyone in the restaurant, respectful of their coaches, and took great care in cleaning up and pushing chairs in before they left. I thought you would appreciate hearing what a great job your girls do when they are out and about in the community. Please share my compliments with your coaches as well. So I just thought that was very positive, noteworthy thing to share with the board as well.
Thank you very much, and let's make sure that the coach sees that too. Okay, our student rep is not here.
So our student rep is out for personal reasons, so hopefully we'll get him to start joining us at some point.
Okay. And this brings us to public input. This time we'll entertain anything from the public. Nothing? Yeah.
This is in response to the comments that were made, and just to kind of come up with a history. When I first started on the school board, there was 30-minute meetings, pretty much. There was almost an hour of, anywhere from half an hour to an hour on closed session every meeting, and 30-minute meetings. And the extended time in closed session was not for any particular reason. It was never advertised for a particular reason. There was discussions of anything. It was very congenial. We had a great rapport in terms of just being able to talk off record, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. So I raised months of concerns about what we were discussing there. Finally, there was a legal support to say that we need to put on the agenda what is going to be discussed, and we need to limit our discussions accordingly. So now we're following the rules. And numerous times you've heard me make reference to policies that we're not following. And in that sense, the suggestion is implied that we follow the policy. That's simply what, and an example is, we have under policy to do strategic planning once a year. We have under policy that we do budget reviews throughout the year and audit reviews throughout the year. In the last 3 years, we've had financial audit reports that show that we spent $1.3 million in a way that circumvented board review of those transfers. And our policies say that the audit committee is supposed to review the audit report and make recommendations to the board. That's never happened. Almost every time I bring up a policy, it's never followed. So there is some discourse, a lot of discourse. And we don't have a strategic plan. We don't have a strong review of the budget or grasp of the budget. When we reviewed and approved the budget, it was on 2 pages. I don't know how many pages of line items there are. We don't approve necessarily the staffing. We don't approve the salaries. In terms of, clearly the superintendent sets the salaries as well as the salary schedule followed by the state. But the budget committee is supposed to look at to affordability of that. And because we have, and we added previously we added 2 positions to the administrative section for which some people, like myself, believe it was overstaffed. And the converse of that is you take a look at COVID and you take a look at the cleaning requirements that are there. And I brought up that I didn't think we had enough custodians or maintenance staff, or even IT staff for that matter, to address the issues that were there. A statement was made that we were not going to add any more custodial staff. And as I walked through the buildings this last week, you can see what's being left behind. And you talked about morale. Teachers clean their own rooms now, in addition to having to do a lot. And I should clarify, at least in Snail and in the high school, teachers are largely cleaning their own rooms. And they've been doing it now for years, especially in Snail. We've added almost everything to the subordinate staff and said do it without any additional work. So I've taken objection to that, and I do go to the schools, not as often as I'd like to. It's not to order people around, but it's to check to see where we are in terms of their needs as well as where we are in curriculum. To make a point, New Mexico is last in public education in the country. We are last. One of the things that we have as a policy is that we're supposed to review the curriculum. We don't. We don't. We have a case last year where certain classes, math classes, didn't have books for the first semester. And then the second semester, they were put on a whole different program. Be a teacher and try to live with that. Be a student and try to think, okay, we're going to get coordinated. The meetings that were on before never gave any insight as to what goes on in the school board. COVID has brought the opportunity for people to participate without having to give up their time at home, and has opened up a dialogue that is now more impactful. And that forum has helped me get into a place where people seem to be holding more accountable. Still not yet. I've been asking for amount of monies that we spend on janitorial services to a specific contractor that first was the son-in-law of one of the board members, and then I guess now it's become the grandson. So maybe now it's less viable. But there's still a question as why are we paying for contract services when we can increase our staff and be more readily responsible? Not to mention we're understaffed in custodians. To use contract money, if you walk through the high school here, walk through Snail, they're not kept up. It's not kept up. If you look at the lockers here, almost, I'd say at least 1/4 of the lockers
You've got 1 more minute. We let everybody talk for 3, so you've got 1 more minute.
Where is that on the agenda? And when is that in policy? And I believe Mr. Jaramillo probably went over 3 minutes, but nevertheless, so the dynamic here is I have to do things their way or no way. And I've been doing it no way other than raising the objection. But if you don't hear the objection, you'll think everything's okay. You'll think that the hiring of family members is okay. You'll think that the using of contracts without going through the proper bidding, without going through the checks that need to be happening are okay. You'll think that we're going through a process that looks at our finances and we're spending the money where it needs to be. This year, we did get for the first time, Joyce brought up the staffing level. For the first time, we got to see that, and I was very appreciative of that, and I hope that continues. But if we have a member of the public that has to pay for the information that's going to be discussed at the board packet, basically, when it used to be provided at the meetings before on a table.
The agenda was.
What's that?
Agendas have been provided, not the entire board packet.
Well, when I started, there was information there that was not just the agenda. But nevertheless, those kind of things should be posted. One of the things that we talk about is transparency. We're far from it.
15 seconds.
Mr. President, I would like to rebuke a couple of items that Mr. Guadiana just stated. One of them was he said that it was told to board, or I'm not sure to who, that we would not be adding additional custodial staff. Additional custodians were added to CARES 2 grant, CARES 3 grant. Our situation right now is that we have nobody applying for these positions, and so yes, we are short-staffed with those positions right now. We are continuing to still try to hire for those positions. In addition to that, we do have people out on leave. So those positions, again, they're being very difficult to staff. We are adding custodial staff or trying to add custodial staff based on those grants. Also, as far as cleaning companies, it did go through procurement. Bids were sent out, and the entire process was followed as far as the cleaning companies that put in to participate.
Mr. President, I need to speak on what Mr. Guadiana is saying. First of all, I want to make a point, and I'm going to be talking into what our person spoke here, Mr. Jaramillo, as far as public input. Here we are, we're showing how prepared we were for the board meeting. We're showing that we're really prepared to attack one another. And I'll tell you what, Mr. Guadiana, you are one board member. You go to the schools almost every day. And you know what? You don't just go visit. You go to attack people. And you attack our staff, you attack our people. Do you ever come back and report to the president? This is what I'm doing, this is what I'm trying to find out. Do you ever inform the superintendent, I want to go to X school today, will you go with me? No, you never do that. Here you're saying that you changed this, you did that. You know what? You're one board member. If you would bring the stuff to the board and we could act on it, maybe we could get something done. The other thing that I want to point out is everybody here has served an office. They are teachers, they're in their community, they're judges, they're whatever. They have training. They go to training. How many trainings have you been through for your 4 years of school board? You know what? You don't go to trainings. And you know what? Everything that you're talking about, it changes. The PED changes stuff every second day, every third day, or whatever. And we act on the changes. And that's what we're at. The other thing that I want to touch on a little bit, the audit. You have seen the audits that the auditor has done. You have seen the reports that have gone to Santa Fe and came back with the best audit that we could have. You report on, you're talking about the finances and your committee and stuff. How many times have you come to the board and say, we need to do this, we need to do that? You know what I can answer? Zero. Thank you.
Those deserve responses.
Mr. President, before we leave, we do need to set a finance committee meeting before we leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the whole point is, and I've been reviewing these meetings, there was one word that came to light continuously at the last meeting, and that was the word inclusive. Inclusive, inclusive, inclusive came up at that meeting continuously. Overreaching sometimes can be dangerous. You have to know your legal boundaries. You have to know where you stand and the resources that are out there. Now, I've served in public service for years. I've also been faced by the district attorney and attorney general's office by assumptions, and sometimes valid. There's a process. There are state agencies. If you feel that there's violations of any sort, seek them, identify them, prosecute them. But this isn't the forum or the venue to do that, because out in the public, It doesn't look inclusive. It doesn't look like a consolidated program, the Cobre Consolidated program. You're not showing that. And you can't say that I absolutely know nothing about public service. I served 30 years in public service. I know what it is. I know what the teachers go through. Central Elementary adopted me for 8 years. I started helping them when my grandchild was in pre-K, all the way to 6th grade. I made copies, I made bulletin boards, I laminated. I said I was out at the playground. You know why? Because I knew how hard these teachers work. I know how hot it is out there for the summer lunch program ladies to be out there. The machine of this school is not the board. And there's something that is always on my mind, and I've always adopted this. There's a style of leadership that is called a king in a pyramid. And there's a shepherd. You know, the king never knows what supports that pyramid because he never looks down. A shepherd is always within the flock because that shepherd understands it and sees which one is swaying in which direction. And they always say, fear the king, seek guidance from the shepherd. That's where you guys should be. Now, my recommendation to you, there are issues. There are valid issues. Publicize a forum for a retreat. A quorum can be met as a retreat. As an example, I did that when the county commissioners were totally not getting along. I took them out to the airport at Deming where they could yell at each other and nobody could hear them. It's remote. Use it as an instructional aid. The other thing that I'm going to go back to, you're draining your superintendent currently, past, and it's going to be the future. If you don't start meeting and pre-planning your agenda, all these questions that you're bringing up can be identified. She has the opportunity to modify, table, correct, add. And in full compliance, you don't see 2 agendas publicized. You are all in sync, inclusive. It's a mechanism that you got to train yourselves to do. And I come at you with experience. I've been there, guys. I've been there. I know how hard it is. But you're at the public eye. You committed yourselves to that. There's no compensation. The reward is, again, you are the foundation builders of the future of these children. Open up the website to the Cobra School District. There's a full mission statement. And if you want the small text, look at the marquees. It's stamped on every marquee. It falls on your shoulders, guys. There's a lot of problems, but to me, out in the public and a lot of the public, it looks like a cat fight. That's happening in Washington, dysfunctional, and it trickles to agency, to agency, to agency, going down to the state, identifying ourselves by racial, and we're identifying ourselves by religion, we're defending ourselves by wealth, we're dividing yourselves up political groups. Political views, mask or no mask. What I see is an echo of what's destroying this great nation. That's the only point that I'm putting across. However you solve your problems, you are the board. I'm just saying what I see, and it's echoed by every person. And I'm sure even the educators are not going to come up here and stand like I am right now. But I've been there. It's so much easier being on this side. I've been challenged by the Attorney General's office to say, why did I take on such a devastating project. And I said, it's for these county commissioners, which weren't even there to support me. I've been there, guys. I wear the scars. I just don't need more time. I just need to express my thoughts as a parent. But again, figure it out. But meet with this lady. Get prepared. By the time you come here, you look like professionals. And resolve your issues. You can set up a retreat weekly, as long as you publicize it as a quorum. Just get it out of your system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
In response, one is all the committee meetings that I want to have to redo report here whenever they do happen, which is very infrequent. There's very little that I express that needs to be done, that I should say I don't express. Pretty much I've said everything and I bring it to the board, and but then I get, you're one. And it's not a matter of looking, are we doing the right thing? I've asked for the board to do a self-evaluation, and that's a public forum. And that's really something that we could use to address this kind of thing. But that request has gone on deaf ears, almost like everything else. It is that I am one, and that's what I'm constantly reminded of. Not having the opportunity to do the board self-evaluation, not having the forum to do the strategic plan, and that's an open forum, not having a gentleman that requested to be on a committee, the finance committee, ever responded to, and he brings a wealth of information. We have our SB 9 issue coming up. We have a really poor record of accountability for the funding, even though that's been requested time and time again. I'm trying to get us to where we're transparent, where we answer the questions that people have on how things are being done and how we're managing that. That doesn't happen. I agree 100% with we should be having meetings, but not on the 2 at a time, because that's a rolling forum. But having actual forums that are announced. Yes, it is.
2 people are not a rolling quorum.
When you have 2 people and then the other 2 people come in, it's a rolling
If you
forum.
have 4 there, yeah, right. But
Not
if
at
you
the
just
same
have two,
time.
no.
I'm saying you have 2 at one time.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, again, I want to thank you.
Thank you,
and
sir.
I hope you have an open mind to what I'm expressing,
And
because every one of us has to reach in there with an open mind to see how we're going to accomplish. If you feel that your situation and your concerns are valid, pursue the legal process.
He's gone that way already.
I haven't gone that route yet. And
But-
it's very difficult to get evidence from here. But nevertheless, your
Well,
point
you
is
know,
well taken.
if you don't get evidence, it's called assumption.
Your point is well
So get
taken.
an
Thank you, sir.
agency to come in and do a task audit, hiring audit, whatever it might take. You know, there are agencies out there. But debating, like you're debating, it looks like a cat fight, you know? And so, again, I recommend publicize a retreat and express your thoughts and figure out a resolution, because this isn't the venue for it, guys.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
not. No, it's
Thank
not.
you.
And thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I did also forget to announce that on Friday, we do have our homecoming parade at 2 o'clock. So elementary schools will be released at 12:30. Secondary schools will be released at 1:20. We have the homecoming game on Saturday at 2 o'clock as well.
Okay, thank you.
And we need to set a finance committee meeting for this week.
Okay. Victor?
Yes, sir. Good evening. I do have as an employee of the district, administrator of the district, also a previous community member and parent and uncle to nieces and nephews within our district. I want to touch base on our technology within the district. You know, back in April of last year when we had to come up with a solution to accommodate the pandemic, you know, we had to put together policies and procedures, present those to you guys, get you guys to approve these. You know, I had a pretty disturbing email on September 7th, I believe. And just a little transparency here, since that's, and whatnot, and this is to you, Mr. Guadiana. I was advised that you refused that you were going to pay for Chromebook damage policy. April of last year, we presented this was approved. You know, September 14th, 2020, you signed off on the student Chromebook policy for your child. I think on the last meeting you said something about that there's a grant that covers this. I have yet to find which grant's covering that. You know, I have over, I want to say a couple dozen families within our district that have been following our policies, making arrangements at all means to accommodate or cover damages done. And coming from a board member saying that we need to figure out how to do it, I don't think that's fair. And I think it should be justified a little bit more, you know, because you did sign, and that is something that you, the school board, approved. And I just want to know, you know, just you being a school board member doesn't give you the privilege or authority to overlook what was approved. Because how are we going to turn around and come up with an answer once the community hears of this on what we're going to do for the ones that have already paid? Can you provide an answer for that?
Sure, I can. You're recollecting half of the conversation we had. I did mention that we had $10,000 in the grant that was approved for replacing broken books, what do you call them, the notebooks. And I asked, how is it that we have that money and we're expecting the parents to pay for it? You directly responded that if I see that it was something intentional, that will make them pay. If it's not, then we can use the grant funds. That's what you said. And my son broke his screen from carrying it on in his backpack. There was no physical dents or anything else like that. That has to do because they can't have access to their lockers. Granted, they got the case, but they're having to carry everything from class to class. So I told them, check with administration, see if this is the kind of stuff that's covered. I didn't say I refuse to. That's not at all what I said. What I said is check with them, see if this is something of the things that's covered under that grant. And if it isn't, then let me know.
Okay, well,
So
I think there's a little...
I can answer the question on the grant. When we wrote that money into the grant, we have 38, I believe, Chromebooks that are going to expire with warranty next year, correct?
It was a total of 40.
So that's what we wrote into the grant to replace those 40 because they would no longer have a warranty. So that's what we had written in there.
No,
that's what that pertained to.
That's not what I'm going. We can look up the grant. The grant was for repairing broken notebooks, and the discussion that we had.
Correct. It was for 40 Chromebooks. That's what it was for.
It was for 40 Chromebooks, sir.
When we had the discussion, that wasn't even mentioned. That was the intention. You were there. It was an open meeting.
Okay.
So wait, no, the 3 minutes aren't up yet. And
I think this discussion, if you've got questions on it, you can get with Victor and Ms. Varela, and I don't think this is something that we can discuss here or should discuss here, but if you've got a broken Chromebook, you can talk to them and get it fixed, because we need to move on the agenda.
Yes, sir, I totally respect that. It's just that coming as one, as you present yourself, I just wanted to put that out there because I wanted everyone to know exactly what's going on, because this is concerning to me, because we do have we're in a very impoverished area, and we do have parents that are making, by any type of means on making an arrangement. That is all.
Okay, thank you, Victor.
He got to extend, so, and we have a grant that we put aside money for this type of thing. If it's being used differently, then that we need to know.
We will go back and look at that. Terry, when, do you have an idea on the finance meeting? I think we said Thursday?
Yeah, I have to do it on Wednesday in the morning, so either Wednesday afternoon.
I can't do it, well, I could, but it'll be like about 3:30, 3 o'clock that I could on Wednesday, or Thursday afternoon. I don't know what your availability is for both of you.
I'm not available Thursday. I got to be in Tucson.
Not available Thursday at all?
Is that the 29th?
23rd. 23rd, because we have a board meeting coming up on Monday, and we're going to bring a couple of things to the board for approval, so that's why we would like to have a finance committee meeting this week.
The 29th, we're traveling to Albuquerque to a meeting with the New Mexico School Board.
Okay. So Wednesday, are you leaving Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, I can be Wednesday.
Wednesday? Afternoon, like 3:30, 3 o'clock?
I gotta pick up my kids.
Okay, you pick them up at 3:30 and 4, correct?
It's 4 o'clock. They're both at Snail, so.
4:15?
4:15.
4:15? Is that okay?
Okay.
Virtual? Virtual? Okay. $4:15 on Wednesday, the 22nd, and it'll be virtual.
Mr. Esqueda?
Again, Mr. President, board members, I guess I apologize to Mr. Cordova because I guess I don't know if I annoy him because every time I come to talk, but in any event, in regards to the Finance Committee, I've expressed my interest to volunteer and for that in the past, and I was wondering, in regards to the composition of the Finance Committee, is that something that you can share with the public in regards to the current members, and if there are any public members or volunteers, and how does that work?
It's open to the public.
So does somebody need to get nominated by the superintendent or one of the members that are on the board at this point in time?
Normally what we've done is one of the members brings somebody in with them, but it's hard to get somebody in there. But like I said, it's open to the public. Anybody can come in at any time.
So again, I've submitted a letter of interest in the past. Have yet to receive any response. So with my letter of interest, is that...
Yeah, what I'm telling you now is you can show up.
Okay, so so when do those meetings get published, or when does the information put out there so that members of the public can show up?
So what we've been doing is we've been announcing them at board meetings, just like we did today. Okay. And then what we usually do is follow up with an email to the people that we know are on the committee.
Okay, well, I believe each one of you has my email address, so if you don't mind, I'd be more than willing if I can fit it into my schedule to attend your next meeting. And do the agendas get published or sent out to those that are interested, and the packets?
When we decide what day, normally your meetings are around 8:30 in the morning.
Okay. No, I certainly try to make myself available.
I think the question also relates to if he is now can be a member, then he should be receiving the information that we receive to do the analysis, like the budget and staffing, everything else that's related to the budget that we need to review.
And again, and this kind of goes back to requests for information in regards to the finances. And, rather than the information being provided or the questions asked, I think this goes back to some of the discussions that you had earlier today, is that, again, the accountability, the transparency, the inclusivity, things of that nature. And again, what I've come to find out with the questions and my emails that I've been submitting since January, it seems like if the can just continually gets kicked down the road in hopes that the items or the questions will be forgotten about. You know, there was a gentleman in the public that requested some information, had some valid questions based on the information that I saw, and the response was, rather than the answers being provided, there was one answer provided that was to address all the questions, and the answer was, the documents speak for themselves. Rather than providing an answer, that was the answer. And the documents speak for themselves. So when a statement like that is made, the documents speak for themselves. When you're asking for information to hopefully justify the expenditure of some funds in hopes that the right decisions were made, but yet that's the answer you get. You know, speaking from somebody who's done this for a number of years, that's not the right answer. That doesn't put trust or confidence in the public when that's what the answer is. But again, my intent was to come up here, ask about the Finance Committee. It was addressed, so I'm assuming I'll be receiving an email from Mrs. Varela in regards to the team's invitation or a Zoom meeting with an agenda and whatever documents will be discussed at that meeting. Like you said, Mr. Sepulveda, once a date and a time is set. And if I can work it into my schedule, I'll certainly do my best to attend the meeting.
And just so you'll know, it comes from Terry.
Okay, no, that's fine. And Terry has my email, so again, whether it be Zoom, Teams, whatever, just let me know. So with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And hope everybody has a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public input? Okay, that moves us to items for next agenda, and the thing that I have right now is all the items that we tabled.
Yes, and so it was both board minutes. I lost my paper. The superintendent search, the legal notice, superintendent search scope of work, the legal notice. Also want to add Misty Pugmire onto that agenda. And
do I see a hand out there?
okay. Wasn't there two items? There was another one.
The bar for the second third, that was already approved, but the bar part of it, to add that part of the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to ask for an agenda item for a retreat for the school board to do a self-evaluation and discuss the items that Mr. Jaramillo kind of brought up in terms of the dysfunction and the path forward.
Okay. That is something that we'll have to wait, because for a retreat to work, everybody's got to be there and got to be there all the time, the whole length of the retreat. And right now we're missing two board members that I don't know what their date is.
That's why I'm asking for it to be on the agenda to be voted on next board meeting. And I know Gabe will be here on that day. I don't know. I would assume Frank's going to be here. But then again, he's...
And then we'll have to look for somebody to facilitate it, Joyce. Anything else? Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.